Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again as we carry on with the concerned review of the book Physics of Heaven, which was published in 2012 by Bethel Church, written by Judy Franklin and Ellyn Davis, with contributions by Bill Johnson, Benny Johnson, Chris Valentin, and others. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, which is named Sound of Heaven Symphony of Earth. This was written by Ray Hughes, and in my opinion reads only slightly more easily, slightly less confusingly perhaps, than the Chapter 3, which was taken from interviews by Bob Jones. So Ray frenetically describes sound, and he links it to this outpouring of God's creative energy in the universe. Sound, he says, sets the tone for the destiny of the church, and says that the climate of the church is going to be indicated by the type of music that it plays. Every revival, Hughes says, has been marked by a new kind of music or a new kind of sound that has accompanied it. And he describes people who are united in sound as having some kind of a power to fill the house of God, and that God would actually be drawn into the service by that. So each one of us, he says, is created with this uniquely different sound in the same way that a instrument has its own sound. And he says that as we are played, as the instruments of our lives are played, we chase religion from the church and bring in truth. So let's shift to some of the spiritual assertions that are made in this chapter, as well as the use of the Bible and some of the implications. Hughes begins by saying that the Holy Spirit has given him unique information to unravel the, quote, puzzle of heaven's sound. So he has this unique information from God, and says that what he writes about here is based on scientific fact, confessed speculation, and spiritual revelation. So I'm thinking from my reading that it's mostly speculation. He just says a lot of really weird stuff in this chapter. He takes two phrases, "let there be light" from Genesis 1:3, and he says that he links that to 1 John 1:5, God is light and in him there is no darkness at all. And so he links these two verses to a lot of speculation about vibrations, light, sound, music, and glory, which he calls all of these the elements of God. So he then goes on to describe the sound of heaven as the, quote, sound of many waters, drawing on Revelation 14:2. And he says that the sound of water encompasses all of the frequencies of the sound spectrum. And this somehow links to the four universal elements of water, wind, fire, and earth. And he says that the first three of those can be heard in heaven, and the fourth is the one that makes up humanity. I guess he's playing off of that term Adam, or earth. And then almost immediately afterwards, he feels that it's necessary to mention that a pair of 30-inch speakers connected to a tone generator can move a building off of its foundation. So I hope that you can get a sense, even from just the way I'm jumping from topic to topic, that that's how the chapter reads. It's very difficult to follow this stream of consciousness that he seems to be pouring out. He says that the church needs to have the right kind of music in response to what God is doing, but then he backpedals on that just enough that you really have to guess what on earth he means for yourself. And then he talks about Niagara Falls and how the sound of heaven is 10,000 times that. So it's all just very strange and difficult to follow. Hughes references the music that's accompanied by the dedication of the Temple of Solomon in 2 Chronicles 5:11 through 14, suggesting that dedication of the temple and the music that was part of that triggered this filling of the temple with God's overwhelming presence. He says that this is like the coming of the Holy Spirit in Acts, although the sound that the priests made in the account in 2 Chronicles doesn't really have a corollary in Acts 2, so it's not clear how those two are linked. And then he tosses in a fragment of Colossians 1:27 and says that the word glory means lightified, which again is not really connected. He adds to 1 Corinthians 2:9-10, he adds that to the mix, and he says that eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him, but God has revealed them to us through his Spirit. So I think from all of this, you can just see how he's kind of layering these things on to his thoughts. He's layering these verses onto what he is trying, in whatever sense, to communicate, without real concern for the context of the verses or even the meaning of them per se. In fact, he doesn't really seem to be concerned with using them to prove his point. It's almost like he's just kind of peppering the text with the Bible to convince the reader that this is in fact a Christian message and not just one about sound and frequencies and vibrations and noises. So where this fits into the bigger picture of the book, it links vibration and sound to worship of God in heaven. So that's an important piece, I think, as far as the argumentation goes, is to say we're not just talking about vibrations in this abstract sense. Remember that the previous chapter was kind of this grade 6 primer for us to remember what on earth a wave was, or what on earth a photon was. And now we're getting this sense that the scientific content is linked to heaven. So it's meant to convince the reader that the teachings of this book both empower us and worship God, and again, linking the physics with heaven. So thanks for sticking with me as we go through the processes of unveiling this book. I know it's kind of disjointed, but that unfortunately is how the book reads. So thank you for sticking with me. Join me again.